I'm Brandon Isle with BYU-Idaho Radio, and joining me on the phone is Kris Millgate of Tightline Media. Well, tell me about this weekend. This is so fun, opening the Idaho Falls Symphony season. Thomas Heuser's 15th and final season. They're making a big deal about this, but they're featuring your work. And this is called, I have to get this right, Sounds of the American West, this concert. So how did you get involved with this?
Well, of all things, I met Carrie Affey at a bridal shower in the summer. And then a few days later, she called and said, I'd like to go to lunch. She is in charge of the Idaho Falls Symphony. And I met her for lunch, and she said, I have this idea. Here it is. What do you think? And her idea was to put visuals to the symphony. And I said, what I think is it's fantastic. And so I was given a piece of music written by a very talented composer named Jennifer Higdon, and it's called All Things Majestic. And I took that piece of music, and I listened to it, and then I had to figure out how to show people what that music would look like according to Idaho's wild landscapes. So what's neat about that is because I had to go through and find the best shots of wildlife and wildland that come from eastern Idaho, I had the opportunity to go through my library of footage. Tightline Media turns 20 in 2026.
That's crazy.
I've been at this. It's crazy. I've been at this as a freelance journalist running Tightline Media for 2 decades now. And so my library of footage it's ginormous. And it gave me the opportunity to go back through 20 years of footage and pull out the best stuff. And I've never had the opportunity to do that. So as I was putting together this piece for the symphony, I was also going back in time and looking at how I have improved the way I shoot video. I have improved the way I tell stories. And I have improved the way I bring those stories to you. And so it was really exciting to have the opportunity to look at everything as one big piece of 20 years and pick out the best of it to put into a 20-minute show.
What's so interesting about this piece of music, this was commissioned for the Grand Teton Music Festival, and she wrote this specifically for our neck of the woods, right? She's got songs called String Lake, Snake River, Teton Range. So yeah, finding that footage is so neat to pair that music made specifically for our area with your footage of the actual area.
Right. And what I had to do when I first started editing was actually go in and listen to an interview with the composer, because I heard what she had written and I heard orchestras play it, and it's lovely. And each piece is very significant in what it's trying to portray. But you know what I realized is that we all hear the outdoors in different ways. So parts that she was playing, like String Lake, they didn't sound like String Lake to me, or they didn't sound like the Tetons to me, but they did to her. And so I realized I had to figure out how to find what fit the music and look beyond what I think the music looks like. And it took me quite a few weeks to figure out how to even edit to symphony music. Symphony music doesn't have a hard out. There's not a straight cut. It kind of ebbs and flows and goes here and goes there. Well, how do you change shots to that? I had to learn how to edit to symphony, because visuals, for me, don't move in the same way that symphony music moves.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And I think a lot of people are used to watching a film and hearing the music, but typically the music is made for the film, and you had to do it backwards.
Right. And when I do a wildlife film, I have a composer who does probably every track at this point. And we have this little thing we do in tandem where I lay some voice and I lay some B-roll video shots, and then I say, have at it. And he starts writing music based on what he thinks it sounds like as what I'm showing him. And then I edit. In this case, the piece was done. Somebody else had had a vision for this piece, and I had to figure out how to add visuals to their musical vision. And it was quite a challenge. And one thing that helped me figure it out faster than it would have is that it's a one piece of music, but it has 4 movements, and we have 4 seasons. And so I decided to divide the 20 minutes into 4 seasons. And then I decided, well, this is an October event, so we should start with fall. And once I did that, and I laid the seasons in order, fall, winter, spring, summer, then I had a direction that I could follow, and I put files on my desk by season, and then I pulled the best of that season and started filling in the spaces. And the other thing that's interesting is it's no audio. I'm not in charge of the audio for this. So you're not hearing what my shots sound like. You're only seeing what they sound like, and you're hearing the symphony.
Was that so hard for you? Because that's such a big part of editing video, is that natural sound.
It was hard for me to edit without sound, and so what I did is I left all the sound at first. And then as the music started to take over my process, my sounds were in the way, and so I ended up stripping out the audio, except I left it in a couple of places that are really significant. And I left it in the places where the seasons change. When you listen to this piece of music where the movements change, there's a quiet pause. Maybe it's for clapping, maybe it's just for resetting your mind. But in those quiet points, I let a little bit of natural sound from the outdoors come through in the shot. And most of the time, those are going to be places where you hear river. So you hear a little bit of water or maybe a little bit of wind. And maybe it'll come up at the live performance, or maybe it'll be covered with clapping. But it is there. Other than those few seconds, I bet a total of 10 seconds of river wind sound is all there is within the whole 20-minute movement. The rest of my stuff, there's no sound. It's all created by the instruments. And I know that it will work out, but at this point I'm nervous because I feel like I don't have control over the pace. I don't know how long you're going to clap. Average clap is 6 seconds. But you clap longer than that, then the symphony is a little delayed, and then my shots don't match. But Thomas has assured me it's all going to line up and it's going to look fantastic, and I trust him. He knows what he's doing, and so I know it's going to come off great.
Yeah. Well, and the audience is really smart, too. They understand movements, and typically you're not clapping between movements. You're just waiting for them to reset and move on.
Yeah, and so that's why I added a little bit of natural sound there to help pull. And maybe if it doesn't come up, all the shots will still work. But it's there just in case that pause is so quiet that it may help people connect. I mean, it'll work if it needs to be there. And if it doesn't need to be brought up as sound, it won't be.
Yeah. When you were going through your footage, did you end up shooting some new stuff that will be featured in this?
Oh, that's a great question. So the original contract that I put together with the symphony was that I would use all of my library footage and that I would give them rights to show at a one-time event my footage. When you're taking 20 minutes of my best footage over the last 20 years, that's a very sizable chunk of effort on my part, and they have the right to show up for this one-time event. So originally there was no other shooting going on. But as I started putting it together and looking at Eastern Idaho through this lens of a 20-minute movement, I realized that there were parts of Idaho that I don't have, or I have them, but I shot them so long ago that I want to use my new camera on them. Or I don't have them shot with my drone, so there's no aerials. A good example is the lava flows. Mm-hmm. So when you go out through the desert, there's Craters of the Moon National Monument, sure. But there's a lot of black basalt between Idaho Falls and Arco. And I wanted a drone shot of those, and I didn't have it. I have it of Manam Butte, but I didn't have it of just black rock. And so that was the only thing that I actually shot again, because I thought, well, that's shame on me for not having that in my library already. And so I did shoot a little bit, and that's on me to absorb the expense of that, because that was a shot that I wanted, and I knew I would need it for this event, and I would need it in my library. I couldn't believe I didn't have it already.
Yeah. Well, it's just so interesting thinking about the technology changes over 20 years, where you started shooting with one piece of gear and you've upgraded over the years, and it's always changing. So that'll be fun to see. I don't know, maybe an evolution throughout the video of of the different types of footage?
Yeah, you will see underwater, overhead. You will see, is there trail camera shots? I don't think I use any trail camera shots because the quality is a little bit marginalized on a trail camera. So, but definitely you will see underwater and overhead and on ground. And it's fun to see those shots all blended together. And here's an interesting piece of the story that gets down the weeds a bit. When you're editing a story, say like for a newscast, you do a straight cut. It's just one frame of video to the next. In a piece like this, those changes between shots have to be smoother, softer. So you say, okay, I'll do a dissolve. A 1 second dissolve is about the most I'll tolerate. Well, for this piece, the way the music moves is much slower, much more thought out than 1 second for a dissolve. I have longer dissolves in this piece than I have ever edited in my entire career. There are 3 second dissolves and 5 second dissolves because the notes kind of flow out that long and that slow in certain spots. And that's what the piece called for.
You've been stretching new muscles, Kris.
I have been stretching new muscles, and I've really found it exciting and rewarding and enjoyable, and I'm just thankful for the privilege to have this project come up when it did, right on the eve of my 20th anniversary, so that I had the opportunity to look at everything again. It really makes you reflective when you have an opportunity to look back on 20 years of work.
Yeah. Well, and you've done such great work over the years and really captured our wildlife and put so many meaningful projects together.
Well, and I feel like having the opportunity to share this in kind of what would be considered out of the box is so up my alley. I love trying new things. I love out of the box concepts. And if there's a way for me to bring the wild to people and we can do it with symphony, what a fantastic idea. What a way to help people connect in a way that I haven't tried yet. And the symphony for coming up with this idea, I am just grateful that we were able to pull it off, and I'm excited to see how it shows. I'll tell you that of the 4 seasons, winter turned out to be my favorite, and it is because of the music.
And which pieces linked with winter?
Well, within the 4 pieces, I'd have to go back and look at the order. So fall, winter, spring, summer. So it's the second movement of the 4.
Okay. So
and that one turned out to be my favorite.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, what was it like working with Thomas Heuser and with the symphony to finish this project?
For the beginning part of this project, I was on my own. He sent me a link and said, here's what this piece sounds like. And I spent a lot of time by myself trying to figure out what this sound should look like and altering the way that I edit and the way that I put together stories in my head so that I was more appropriate for orchestra. And he gave me the freedom to just run with what I thought would work. And then I turned it in and I said, okay, here's the rough cut. Watch it. And I left the audio on so he would be able to see where things went. And I said, if you're going to customize this in any way or put your signature on it somewhere, tell me and I'll change my shots. And he came back and he said, I love it and it's going to work just how it is. We had some logistical things like it's watermarked because it's a one-time use, so it has a Tightline Media logo in the corner. And he asked for that to be smaller, and absolutely I'll make it smaller. And just little things like that, but really from one artist to another, there's a respect level there that you know they know what they're doing. And when they show you something, you go, yes, that's it. He did that with my work, and when I listen to him play it this week, I go, yes, there it is. And I can do that with his work. I know he knows how to do his part, and he knows that I know how to do my part. And it works together in a professionally seamless way.
Yeah. Well, the Idaho Falls Symphony is so great. I think we're a small area, and most parts of the world with this type of symphony, it wouldn't be as good. But we have world-class musicians here in eastern Idaho, and they just do such a great job.
They really do. And it's just a fun evening for this town where, we live in a place where you can show up in your jeans and you're still allowed to enter the venue for the symphony. And that's how it should be. I don't own a dress. I'll be there in fancy pants. And it's just a fun night to kind of feel a little bit fancy, but also enjoy music that's not only representative by professional musicians that are just as talented as can be living in this area. But now for this event, you're also going to get to see all the landscapes that you live among. And that's a rarity for people that don't spend as much time outside as I do.
Yeah. Well, what do you hope those who attend this concert go away thinking or feeling?
I hope people leave this concert knowing that our natural resources are what sustain us, and they are within a finger's reach from our front door. And I think a lot of people don't realize how accessible the outdoors are where we live. And here, it's top. It's top of the country. You have access to rivers and woods and places to escape the crazy. And I want them to realize that is so easy for them to touch just because of where they have chosen to live. Inside this 20-minute piece, I have 3 images that have people, because not only is the wildlife on this wild land, but some of us are on that land too. So you will see humans in 3 shots that signify that, guess what? While all this is out here, so are you.
Well, Kris Millgate, this is so fun. The concert is Saturday at 7:30 at the Frontier Center for the Performing Arts in Idaho Falls, and I'm so excited for people to be able to experience this. Thank you, Kris.